Des Moines Waterworks, October 23rd, about 3:30 p.m. We'll have our first consent agenda. Do I hear a motion?
Move approval of the consent agenda.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Item 2, we have a public comment period. At this time, anyone, for any reason, has 5 minutes to say anything to the board. Public, person, employee, anybody. We have nobody to talk to us, so we'll go to item 3, the action items. Item A would be the proposed 2013 water rates. Bill?
And the board is, through their committee system, heard a great deal about the proposed water rates. We actually have a press announcement going out after the meeting today on this issue. But as your materials will indicate, the staff is recommending essentially a zero rate increase for the majority of our customers. There are some exceptions to that, and the materials that we have before you will highlight that. There are particularly areas that have capital improvement needs that would have in those areas higher rate increases. I must say that I would be surprised if next year, if I'm in this role where I'm coming to you with a zero increase for rates. I'm a great believer in significant investment in the infrastructure itself. The capital improvement plan that we have, in my view, isn't as aggressive as I would want it to be given the condition of some of our infrastructure. But I'm certainly very grateful for the work that Peggy and the finance staff have done, and I recognize the board's great appreciation for zero rate increases. I just don't think that's a sustainable philosophy in the long run, although certainly for our customers, majority of our customers in 2013, that's the recommendation before you.
Okay. Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Discussion.
I'd just like to say, Bill, I appreciate your comments, and we've talked about this a lot. We talked about it at the last committee meeting, the latest, but that as we go into this process, I understand and agree with your comments that 0% is not always in the best interest of the utility or even our customers. But I know that this board member, and I think the other board members share my view on this, that job one for this next year is making sure that we explain everything that we do, and that goes how we achieve at our rates, and making that process simpler, so that our customers, both individual customers and those folks are wholesale customers out in the suburbs and other places, understand, and we understand as a board how to do that. And I know, Bill, you're shaking your head. I know you and I agree on that, but I think that it's important that we say that over and over, that this year that's really our main goal. Yeah, we want to hold the line on expenses and keep the costs as low as possible for our customers, but we want to do this wisely, and we want to be clear about what we're doing.
And I think it's important to note the reason we're in the position that we are in is because of the high pumpage that we had for the year.
That's a great point.
And we had set our budget at a level that we exceeded this year, and so, kudos to the staff for bringing that to us. And that's why we're in the position that even with our pay-as-you-go philosophy, we don't have to pass on an increase because our cost of service is reflected in a zero rate increase for the majority of the customers.
Right. Any other comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Item B, proposed 2013 budget.
Certainly a relationship, obviously, between our rates and our budget. Our budget is dependent on rates for its revenue, for the most part. What you have before you has been exhaustively discussed in your committee structure before. We believe it's a good budget. It's certainly a budget that we will carefully scour as we come back to you next year. As I mentioned to you, and I certainly appreciate the comments of Graham and Sue, and actually each of the board members to me in private, the need to continue to look at very conservative budgeting. I will again underscore to you that the capital improvement piece of our budget is one that I have very much an active interest in, and because of work that's going on now and the assessment of our assets, particularly the asset management piece of our business that I know you have some familiarity with, we're going to have better information about what the real conditions of our assets are and what investments are going to be necessary for us to continue to deliver the quality of water that our customers have come to expect from us and demand from us. But this budget, we believe, is very much in keeping with your leadership and looking to taking strategic opportunities to spend money wisely where it needs to be spent. But again, despite record production this year, I am confident that we are going to have better information on where we need to be making investments in our capital improvement program next year. But the staff certainly recommends the budget before you today, and I appreciate your patience and elaborate discussions that happened, most of which happened before I got here, on holding the budget and doing everything possible to make sure that the rates that are so important to our budgeting process were kept at zero for this year.
Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The motion passes. Item C, the 2013 corporate insurance renewals.
An item before you that, again, has been discussed in some detail. Arthur J. Gallagher, who is our broker, has made specific recommendations, some discussion at the audit committee level in particular concerning several of these line items that we'll be fleshing out in greater detail as next year's budget is developed, particularly in the workers' compensation area. As an example, there is a slight increase, as you see, in the rates for this year, but unfortunately that is probably keeping with the market that we're seeing nationally right now, and certainly recommend what is before you today, and that's a renewal of insurance rates at some $872,000, nearly $873,000, with $900,000 budgeted in the 2013 budget, which you just passed.
Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Item D, the 2013 employee benefit insurance renewals.
Again, some additional discussion for your benefits. The employees of Waterworks are currently covered by a Coventry plan. After soliciting quotes through our brokers, we, in discussions with AFSCME local, provided two different choices that we thought were the most economic, and our employees through their union have pointed us from Coventry to United Healthcare as the provider. This unfortunately involves about an 11.3% increase. The contributions that our employees will make are still the subject of negotiations that's ongoing right now, but we ask the board to move forward with the recommendation here to move to United Healthcare for employee benefit coverage for the year 2013.
Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Discussion?
I just want to say on this item, it appears to me that this is a good example of good communication, how management worked with the employees and the union to talk and explain about the situation. And if that's not true, I want to hear it, but it seems the feedback I've gotten, it was a good relationship and a good way to do this. I mean, this is a big part of our budget that we spend on a very important benefit for employees, and we're going to have discussions like this about retirement and other things, and I just want to keep those lines of communication open. I give credit to Bill, the rest of the staff, union members, and employees on how they work together on this, because that's how we should solve problems, and it looks like we are.
Graham, I very much appreciate the comments. Ron Smith, who's our HR director, was instrumental in soliciting these proposals, and I would be remiss if I did not give credit to the AFSCME negotiators. I see Jeannie back there, certainly one of them, and I thought I saw Brian. There you are, Brian. Sorry about St. Louis. Oh, never mind. a number of folks from AFSCME have been involved in discussions with us on insurance, and there's Bill in the background. Sorry, Bill, my distance vision's pretty bad, so I think that's you back there. They've been very instrumental in helping us to get to the reselection now of Coventry and continuing the negotiations on varying levels of contribution. These are always tough items. I know Ron is talking with the City of Des Moines about some alternatives that may be available to us in calendar year 2014. We'll be interested in hearing those, but a lot of credit to our HR staff and to the AFSCME folks who've really dug into this issue and continue to work in good faith and with the real concern of our employees. Each of us who depend on insurance is an important part of why we work here, so my thanks to them.
Great.
Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Discussion?
Sorry.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion passes. Item D, request authorization to solicit bids for the 2012 standpipe exterior painting and establish the date of public hearing as of December 2012 board meeting.
This is a standpipe exterior coating project, which is, just good preventative maintenance in facilities of this type. Preventative maintenance in the form of coating really is to deal with existing corrosion issues. As you can tell from the materials before you, we have budgeted in the budget you've just passed over $250,000 for this. The engineering estimate that we have come up with our engineering staff is closer to $200,000. We're asking for your approval to authorize and solicit bids for this important preventative measure for the Wilczynski, I hope I said that correct, standpipe.
Do I hear a motion?
Move. Second.
Who is Wilczynski and why do we have a
Yeah.
stand?
And I believe he was a former general manager, and someone here can correct me on that, Ted Corrigan, who is our real expert on naming facilities and actually has given me a cheat sheet because I'd asked the same questions. I'm told the Waterworks has a long tradition of naming facilities after former general managers, and I believe Wilczynski was one of them. Does somebody want to correct me on that one? Nobody remembers. He was a board member. Well, board members also are very important, obviously.
I was going to say you had something to look forward to.
No, I'm not into facilities being named. Thank you very much. Alan and I have had some unique experiences along those lines, so for another day probably. But this is an important facility with necessary protective coatings.
So it stands up. I mean, it's similar to like a water tower? Is that,
Well,
I just am
yes,
curious.
and in fact, if you were to look at it, you would think it's probably a water tower, but unfortunately, we
Okay.
don't have anybody from engineering here. Everybody's from engineering, I think, is in Dubuque today, but that's correct.
Okay,
If you were to go out there and look at it, it will look like a large water tower. A silo, thanks.
The attorney's filling this
The
in.
attorney is the engineer for the day. Thank you, Ray.
Park Avenue,
Okay,
Southeast Asian Park.
okay.
Do I hear a motion?
So moved?
Second?
Second.
Discussion? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Item F, we have a public hearing coming up for the WRA easement for sanitary sewer on Waterworks Park property. Let's see, do we have any comments from the public?
And if I may, just prior to public comment, just to give it some background, this is a board action that's being asked to provide permanent easements for an area where the Wastewater Reclamation Authority is constructing a large sewer connecting an area in Frisbee Park, just to our north, that is, with the city of Norwalk to our south. As part of that project, as you may remember from earlier discussions, there'll be some parking lot improvements on the western side of our property at Waterworks. But certainly would I know of no public comment that's been received on this issue, but would certainly solicit on behalf of the board any additional public comments on a permanent easement on Waterworks property to support this WRA project.
I guess we have no public comments, so we'll close the hearing, and could I have a motion?
Dave, I move that we adopt the resolution and the authority to authorize the chairperson and CEO and general manager to execute the permanent easement for the sanitary sewer on the Des Moines Waterworks property.
Second.
Second. A discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The motion passes. Item G, 2012 Operations Center Sanitary Sewer Extension.
Before you is a request to fund some $67,000. There is no facility that we believe of this kind available for rent or sharing with another agency. The underground company is the recognized low responsible bidder for this at some $53,885.
Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Discussion?
The motion is to adopt the form of contract plans and specifications, estimated cost.
Thank you.
I move that we adopt the form of the contract plan, specifications, and estimated cost, and then we'll analyze bids.
Okay, second?
Second.
Okay. Now we'll have our discussion. Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Item H, First Amendment.
No, now we have to analyze the bids.
Oh, okay, sorry. Bill?
We have to analyze the bids. Thank you very much. You'll see before you in the materials on 3G, three responses, the Underground Company, Raccoon Valley LLC, and J&K Contracting LLC. The recommendation before you is to award the 2012 to the Underground in the amount of $53,885 and authorize me to execute the contract.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, now discussion.
Question, our engineering bid came in a little bit higher, but our other two bids were dramatically higher, almost double. I always get very nervous when I see such a
A swing.
Yes.
And Sue, normally I would also be concerned. These are each three highly reputable companies. The Underground Company, which is the low putative bidder here, the low responsible bidder, is a very reputable bidder. What we often find this time of the season and work like this is there are certain contractors that want to close out a book of business pretty quickly and are essentially bidding it as a loss leader. I would have no problem believing that they will be a low responsible bidder. The Underground Company, like Raccoon Valley and J&K, are all very respectable bidders. I would suspect that this is a situation where the Underground Company had a particular business need they wanted to close out and have bid this either at some loss or certainly near cost. So I would certainly recommend to you that we take advantage of it.
And we have done, we've awarded several contracts before to them. It's just, I always wonder if there was a misunderstanding in the bid specs
Right.
when you see such a huge swing there, but.
And I appreciate, normally I would have a concern like that too.
But you think it's
My
time of
my
year.
experience with the Underground is they're a very sophisticated bidder. They know exactly what they're doing
Okay,
here.
good.
Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Item H, First Amendment to Site License Agreement with Telco Corporation Realty LLC.
Yeah, this is a technical amendment to our existing license agreement with what once was Telcor Realty, now, as is not unusual in telecommunications, a merger or a change of name. This essentially allows the licensure to continue with the successor corporation's name. And I'd ask your approval to authorize me to execute that First Amendment on your behalf.
Your motion.
Move.
Second?
Second.
Discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion passes. Item I, acceptance of 2011 Nolan standpipe exterior painting.
This is a completed project. What is being asked of you is to accept the $127,000 $739 payment to Pospilsel Painting, Inc. For the standpipe, the Nollan standpipe exterior painting project.
Do I hear a motion?
I'm happy to move that, it looks very nice.
It's by your house.
Right by you, Jim.
Second.
A discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The motion passes.
Nice when it comes in under budget, too.
Yeah.
Always nice when that happens. And Jim, if you like the painting, I'm sure you like the concrete
I
work
do.
also, completed by Western Waterproof at the Nollan Standpipe for $55,125.05.
Do I hear a motion?
I'm happy to move that too.
Okay. A second?
Second.
Okay. All in favor, or, as a discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The motion passes. Item K, 2012 McMullen Water Treatment Plant South Flow Meter Vault.
This project was one in which we went out to bid, received bids, and certainly a number of reputable bidders have responded back. At the end of the day, when we saw the bids relative to what we'd budgeted, we had some concern about whether there were alternatives to the project. The engineering staff has gone back and found alternatives to that, so we are asking that the board reject the 5 bids submitted on this, and we will be looking at less costly alternatives, and we'll report back to you what the results of that were.
Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Second.
A discussion?
And this is a motion to reject the bids.
That's correct.
Reject all bids.
Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Item K, sorry. Item L, Polk County Rural Water District Number 1 Total Service Contract.
This is one really, Amy is here today, Amy Kaler, and she's done really the lion's work on this with Polk County. And Amy, if you would like to describe it just briefly, I know Rick Mom, our council, has been very involved in this discussion, but this is really a love of labor, a labor of love, if you will, that has added significant customers to our full-service base. And Amy, if you would just highlight it for the board, that would be terrific.
Absolutely. As Bill stated, we have been working with Polk County Rural Water District Number 1 for the bulk of this year, trying to better understand their needs and how Des Moines Water Works could fashion a solution in terms of providing water service for them. So we have, I guess those efforts have culminated in the proposed contract or agreement that you have in front of you. You know, basically it's very similar to our other total service contracts. Water service will be provided directly to those customers in that area. And if you're not familiar with the area, it's over by our Saylorville Water Treatment Plant. It's in that area, Saylorville Township. So they will receive water service under our typical standard policies, procedures. They will take advantage of our payment methods, our website, which they are very excited about. This will really broaden some of the customer service offerings that they have. We'll also be responsible for their water sampling and total distribution, maintenance and operation. Initial rates will be $4 per month and an availability, and $4 per 1,000 gallons. Based on our estimates, we feel very confident and comfortable guaranteeing those rates for 3 years, and they were appreciative of that. So we will reevaluate those after that 3-year period. This contract term is for 5 years with automatic renewal for 5-year periods, unless either party elects not to renew. And in the event that there are capital costs that Des Moines Water Works has paid for that are not recovered through rates and charges that we've already collected, there would be a true-up upon an unlikely termination of this contract. So that is protective of Des Moines Water Works.
There's also
Good
a
job.
1-year termination clause that the Polk County folks wanted. They're a little wary about the nature of the deal, and they wanted some rights to get out of it.
With a 1-year notice.
And I need to say also that the Polk County Rural Water District is going to have this approved by its membership, and that's, I assume, pending the supporting contract.
It is occurring as we speak, 4 o'clock tonight. So,
Do I hear
Literally.
your motion?
So moved.
Second.
Discussion.
Amy, I just want to
Second.
compliment you, and I'm hearing words like this from a number of staff, but you just said it. And it goes to this point of being attentive to our customers. We now better understand their needs. That's exactly what you said. Instead of, you know, what Des Moines Waterworks can do for you, it's looking at their true needs. And I appreciate hearing words like that from you in your position. And we need to continue to do that to satisfy all of our existing customers and retain them, as you well know.
Absolutely.
So thank you for having that direction.
And good job getting some more customers.
yeah,
right.
thank
Good
you.
people.
Thank you.
The real work is ahead, so.
I'm a little curious, I don't have a question or an opinion on the 5-year term. How did you get to that 5-year as the target for the term?
It's considerably shorter than our other total service contracts. I will say this was a pretty emotional decision for their board. They take great pride in their identity and their history.
Sure.
And really, we wanted to get them comfortable with this arrangement, and we felt like, and they felt that after a 5-year period, they would feel confident and comfortable with the relationship. And then, but they wanted a shorter period, so it didn't lock them in case they felt it was going in a direction they didn't like.
Yeah, and I'm comfortable with that.
Yeah.
I mean, at some point, if we get through maybe a renewal or two, will we then think about maybe lengthening that term a little bit?
We usually ask for 40 years.
Right.
Which is the statutory maximum.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, I don't
We
know.
sure
I
could
mean,
do
maybe the history and the experience with them will tell this, but again, if you start making capital expenditures and things, it gets a little more difficult to get out of it in a year, even to get out of it in those 5 years. And so I'm just curious about it, so.
And not to put too fine of a point on it, and Amy, you can certainly reel me back because I was not directly involved in these negotiations except at the very end to, really compliment the folks who were involved in it. But I think it's not unusual in these kind of districts to have a single person, the local man or whatever they want to call it, the person really who is the heart and soul of water delivery, who may approach retirement or may, for whatever reason, go to another job opportunity. That creates the unique chemistry that allows us to talk to these smaller groups. This area of the county is not, I'm confident, particularly in love with Des Moines-based services generally. And so I compliment you for getting a 5-year term based on prior discussions that I've had with folks in this area of the county. I'm confident that local person retiring and the customer service philosophy that was brought to them were pretty important, but even a 5-year term, I'm confident, came with some emotional investment
Absolutely.
on behalf of the 400 or so folks who live out there and would otherwise be pretty suspicious about services delivered to them from Des Moines.
That's fair.
And don't get me wrong, I'm not critical of the 5-year term at all. I was just kind of curious as to the process. It makes
It was
perfect
definitely
sense.
customized to
It
their
makes
needs.
perfect-
Well, and if that's
makes
what it
perfect
required,
sense.
that's
Yeah.
good. That's
Yeah.
good we did that.
Makes perfect
Good
sense
job.
to me.
And we may have more of those in the future. As we try to reach out to some additional utilities, I love what you're doing. If that's the term they're comfortable with, we're flexible.
As long as it doesn't put us at risk, and I just think it's great.
Yeah.
Thank you. End of discussion? Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Item M, $4,605,000 water revenue refunding bond series 2012A.
And I'm confident you remember lengthy discussions that we've had, particularly with the Finance Committee earlier this month on refinancing. Peggy Freeze and Michelle Holland did extraordinary work here to walk this through process. Peggy, if you want to highlight some of the savings here, that would be terrific, because they are substantial to us. And I will, as she's walking to the dais, really emphasize that one of the interesting things that I've found coming to this organization from the outside is the very conservative way in which you all have approached debt and looked at debt service as something that is a seldom used tool, and even in situations like this where it was used, the ability to leverage the market to refinance is very important. So our finance staff very conservative in how they view these things, and refinancing it in this way shows a conservative on top of conservative.
I'm laughing because Bill and I are having a little back and forth about how conservative I am and that he might be a titch more risk acceptable than I am. And so we anticipate some great conversations in the future, don't we, Bill?
We do, Peggy.
I'm going to talk about both bond issues. They are two separate items on the agenda, but I'll take care of them both together because they are very similar. The first one, the 2012 A bonds refinance the 2004 A bonds, which were used to construct an ASR, Aquifer Storage and Recovery Facility. The new bonds, we're issuing $4.6 million of bonds. The true interest rate is 1.58%. If you round up, it was in 4 digits at one point. And the net present value savings is $742,000 or 15.6%. We did shorten the term of those bonds by 1 year. The 2012 B bonds are a little bit bigger bond issue. They refinanced the 2006 bonds, which were used to construct the Saylorville Water Treatment Plant and the Joint East Side Tank. All of these bonds are actually being repaid by participants in those projects. We're issuing to refinance $39.4 million of bonds. The true interest rate is 1.82%, and the net present value savings is $3.8 million, or 9.46%. So a little greater dollar value of savings, a little less dollar value or percentage value of savings, but still very substantial. Again, on this bond issue, we did shorten it by 1 year. In both of those cases, that kept the annual debt service payments approximately level. So in case you're wondering why we chose a 1-year shortening as opposed to some other term of shortening, particularly with the participants, they were interested in keeping the debt service payments about level, but as long as they were about the same, they were very interested in the additional savings that could be gained by shortening a year.
Oh,
So that's kind of it in a nutshell, and there's a lot of roll call votes that need to be taken. Any questions?
I'll move item 3M because I do have questions for you, Peggy.
Okay, a second.
Well, we need to
We're
do.
doing
Yeah,
two
there's
different
several.
things.
To do two.
Sorry.
Each of the bullets?
Sorry.
Yeah.
M and N.
So the first.
There's a motion to place and file.
To approve the resolution as set forth in the materials to place and file the tax exemption certificate. The actual full text of the
Got
resolution
it.
is in the materials.
That's your motion.
Okay, so that's
I
what you
move to
did.
place and file and approve the tax exemption certificate.
Second.
Got it. Okay, discussion.
Roll call.
No.
Oh, do we just do a roll call?
We need a roll call.
David Carlson,
Aye.
Leslie Gearhart,
Aye.
Graham Gillette,
Aye.
James Grant,
Aye.
Sue Hubbard.
Aye. And now I move to place and file and adopt the continuing dissolution certificate.
Second?
Second. David Carlson,
Aye.
Leslie Gearhart.
Aye.
Graham Gillette,
Aye.
James Grant,
Aye.
Sue Hubbard.
Aye.
Motion passes. Now we go to N and just.
No?
One more.
One more.
I'll move to adopt the resolution authorizing and providing for the issuance and securing the payment of $4,605,000 water revenue refunding bonds, Series 2012A, to the City of Des Moines, State of Iowa, under the provisions of the City Code of Iowa, and providing for a method of payback of the bonds.
Second.
David Carlson,
Aye.
Leslie Gearhart,
Aye.
Graham Gillette,
Aye.
James Grant,
Aye.
Susan Hubbard.
Aye.
Okay, then
Did you
let's
have
go-
questions on this one or the other, or just in general?
In general.
Okay.
So we can,
Should we do that afterwards or now?
well, we have Serdwick tonight.
Mhm.
Here's my question. Which customers will be impacted by item M and which ones by item N?
Item M, because all of the responsibility for the repayment of the bonds is Des Moines Water Works. So from that standpoint, all of our customers will be impacted, i.e. this debt service will be repaid by Des Moines Water Works as part of our capital budgets in future years, and for it ultimately comes out of affecting
Total
everyone.
cost of service. Got it.
The 2012B bonds have participants, and give me 1 second, please. I think I can,
I should be able to help you out here. It's Tuesday.
Are they-
Sorry. Give me 1 second.
And I will withdraw that if we are able to tell Serdwick tonight which customers will be impacted by this as far as cost of service. I just think that's an important point that the first one, yes, impacts all of our cost of service, but this one, there are specific groups that we have taken out these bonds for additional
Right, and then we're
infrastructure.
watching the money.
Give us
That's
just
the way I
a
see
minute.
it.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm glad
Give
you
us
brought
just a
that
minute,
up,
'cause I think we can
Bill
find
and I
it.
got this from Peggy just before the meeting,
Oh,
and we plan on presenting it to Serdwick tonight.
wonderful.
And I'm glad you brought it up. We didn't have the list of people, but we've got all the figures.
Wonderful.
okay, I'm sorry, I'm drawing a mind blank on one, but the participants that borrowed money for the Saylorville Water Treatment Plant, which actually was their purchase capacity, were Urbandale, West Des Moines, Ankeny, Waukee, and there is a fifth one there. I'll give that to you, Bill, after the meeting. And then on the Joint East Side Tank, the participants are Pleasant Hill and Polk County, which are our full-service customers. However, that debt service is attributed entirely just to them under the way we do cost of service in accounting for those full-service areas.
Those are great customers that I'm sure will be happy to hear this news.
And they have all been notified, by the way.
They have.
Yes.
But it's good for everybody to hear it, I think.
Other questions?
Thank you.
Any other discussion? Should we go to item N and $39,400,000 water revenue refunding bond series 2012B? And do we need to have discussion on this, or we just can vote?
I'll
I guess
move
we-
to place and file and approve the tax exemption certificate.
Second?
Second.
David Carlson,
Aye.
Leslie Gerhardt,
Aye?
Graham Gillette,
Aye.
James Grant,
Aye.
Susan Hubbard.
Aye. And Dave, now I'll move to adopt the resolution authorizing and providing for the issuance and securing the payment of $35,400,000 water revenue refunding bonds, Series 212B, for the City of Des Moines, State of Iowa, under the provisions of the City Code of Iowa, and providing for a method of payment of the bonds.
Oops, we skipped over the middle one. The continuing disclosure, have we done that?
There's only two.
I don't show that on mine.
It's not on there.
I think we're okay.
Oh, okay.
I think we're okay.
Okay.
I think so. It's not in the other one.
Oh.
That is correct. There's one continuing disclosure statement, excuse me, that covers both of them.
Both of them.
Oh,
Okay,
okay.
Thank you, Peggy.
I'll second that.
Good
Great.
catch,
She said
Olivia.
35.
David
You need to correct
Carlson.
that. You said,
35.
The amount, $39,400,000.
Yep.
you said 35.
Oh, I'm sorry,
Okay.
$39,400,000, thank you.
Aye.
Leslie Gerhardt,
Aye.
Graham Gillette,
Aye.
James Grant,
Aye.
Susan Hubbard.
Aye.
Okay, we did everything okay, Rick?
I think so.
All right. Thank you, everybody. Good, item O.
Officially done.
Item O, acceptance of 2012 Northwest 80th Lane Water Main.
This is acceptance of a contract with Synergy Contracting LLC for payment of $75,756.50 to extend a water main in the Saylorville area under our WSI, our Water Systems Improvement. You may note, Sue, since you mentioned contract prices before, I know you have an eye for this, $77,242.50 was actually what you approved some time ago with the bid. The payment here is, as you'll see, about $2,000 less or $1,500 less. This is a so-called negative change order, where the quantities that are line item actually are smaller than what was initially anticipated in the design, so there's a reduction in the price of the line items to meet the overall payment. Hence, this one's under budget, if you will, by $1,500 because of that.
Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. We'll go to our information items. We'll start out with the committee reports. Jim for Planning Committee.
Spot here. Planning Committee met on October 2nd, and we had a good discussion of the park plan, and Ted Corrigan reiterated some of the numbers that we were looking at and the timing that was in place. And it appears that we are moving forward with not only the money that was budgeted in the Moines Waterworks budget, but some grant money that is being added to that so that we could begin starting the process, hopefully, by the end of the year or before. And the other discussion was on the Moffett farm ground that typically gets leased. We discussed that, release the property to the same person at a higher cost. And I think we did that prior to this time, and we discussed the possibility of what was going to happen in the land that was in the non-agricultural piece of it. And we discussed looking at some kind of a woodland crop versus not, and so there's some further discussion that's going on with that. And the water distribution HVAC contract, we discussed that a little bit. That's still moving forward.
Any other discussion on that? Okay, Sue, Finance?
Sure, we covered and took action today on many of the items: corporate insurance, water rates, budget, employee benefits. The thing that I thought was interesting and that really jumped out, this was our first finance meeting with our new CEO, and on every one of these points he talked about possible collaboration with other entities such as the city in looking at, for instance, a larger pool for our benefits. You know, if you have the small number of employees that we have and you have 2 incidences, which we obviously want to address and need to address in healthcare, that suddenly increases our rates. So I just thought that so many of the things that we've been asking for as a board in this kind of collaboration we heard without having to ask for them, and so I thought that was excellent. And also, which brought about the question that I know has caused a lot of angst to our employees regarding the areas that we had talked about possibly outsourcing, those being human resources, information services, and financial services. And the direction of our CEO was that it did not make sense at this time to continue or to have those discussions. And I think we were all supportive of that. But since that did happen at a finance meeting, I thought it was important to bring that to the full board so that all employees are well aware of our intent to stop those discussions, but to continue, as Alan pointed out, any collaborations that we can have with city, county, and more. So, thank you.
And I just want to put a fine point on that. I mean, that is the positive thing here, is that we're not stopping the concept of collaborating. There are lots of areas where we can collaborate, insurance being one of them, and that's exactly, I think, where we all started this discussion.
Right.
We wanted to look at those things, and I think we're finding ways to do that. We're just changing the way that we're going to evaluate those things and focusing on it. And I fully support and appreciate that approach.
Any other comments? Thank you, Sue. We'll go to the Botanical Center.
I don't have anything to report, but I'll defer to Bill because I know he's had a couple of meetings over there.
And Graham, thanks for allowing me to comment on this. One of the unfortunate palls, I think, over this organization is a layoff process associated with the Botanical Center closing or moving that facility to a private foundation. I know the AFSCME local has worked very hard with us, with Ron Smith in particular, on the process for returning to our employment here at the waterworks. Some half dozen or so employees that are affected by the movement to a private foundation. I have to say those have been very, very constructive and very positive discussions given that context. We're not an organization that lays people off, and so it's a very difficult form of discussion to have, but AFSCME has been extraordinarily helpful in looking at options for the employees that are affected here. We do anticipate that the schedule will remain 12/31 handoff from the waterworks to the botanical gardens. We will continue to have, as Graham has been instrumental in assuring, a role in providing them services, particularly in the maintenance of their facility over the next 10 years or so. They're in dire need of relying on us for particularly mechanical systems maintenance. We'll be providing that while at the same time bringing back our employees here to Waterworks. But again, my thanks to the folks from AFSCME who have worked very constructively with us on a number of alternatives. We continue to work those through, but we're confident that we will have exhausted all possible ways to preserve the employment of the folks who are adversely impacted by this kind of movement, and again, very much appreciate AFSCME's leadership in working with us on this.
Okay, I guess we'll go to our next item. That would be the CEO and General Manager's comments.
They'll be very quick. You probably remember last month Lime Lounge appeared before you to essentially appeal our requirement that they install backflow protection. You denied that appeal. We essentially provided them 2 weeks' notice that we would terminate water service. Before that 2 weeks ran its course, they filed a request for injunctive action on behalf of the wrong forum, but have now moved to the right forum. I do not believe the injunctive relief has been ruled on yet by a forum. Is that correct, Rick?
That's correct.
So rather than cut them off and potentially face a loss of revenue claim from them, we are continuing to allow them to operate in the pendency of this request for injunctive relief. It's our belief that that injunctive relief will be denied, and we will then terminate water service to the facility. Ted Corrigan would be here personally to invite each of you to the planning committee, the park planning steering committee meeting on November 15th. It'll be here from 9 to 11. Ted reminds me this is a very important benchmark, if you will, in the process of moving forward with a steering committee and particularly solicitation of funds to move forward with master planning. So each of you are certainly invited to appear here November 15th from 9 to 11 for that meeting, which will be very important in the process of moving us forward on park planning.
Could you remind me who's on the steering committee?
Can I remind you who's on the steering committee? I could if I knew, Graham. Unfortunately, I don't, but I'll be happy to send each of you a list of those steering committee members.
Thank you.
I believe it's largely a group of folks who have not formally identified themselves as being on the steering committee. That's part of the issue. But I will certainly send you those folks who we know are interested at this point.
And the purpose of this meeting is to formalize that committee?
The purpose of this, more than anything, is to really ask someone or someones who are involved in the process to date to step forward to act as chairs, essentially, of the steering committee, Graham.
I mean, and this isn't maybe the right time to talk about it. I mean, the one thing that I want to make sure that we do, and at some point I think this board needs to have a discussion about where we're headed with park planning, and how we're going to, I think more than anything, how we're going to answer those questions. I think there are a lot of unanswered questions. But I just want to be very careful that that no assumptions are being made about various things. And I think things are moving the right way. I just want to make sure that we as a board have a discussion at some point, and that we're being clear about what each of us expect.
In my discussions with really all of you, it's eminently clear to me that there is some difference of opinion on where this process should go forward. We're at a point really of volunteers, of very little commitment on behalf of the waterworks financially to this project, but still looking at concepts before we would move to a level of substantial financial contribution, either directly or indirectly through staff time. It is clear enough to me that all of you really want additional information on where this is going. We're now, I believe, looking at master planning kind of concepts and raising money to move that piece forward, Graham. But I do recognize that although we all appreciate the 1,500 acres here in particular of parks, there is concern about what the financial obligations would be to move that to the next level and how that would be funded. So we'll be more than cautious about reporting that back to you.
That, and you know, because I support this concept and doing something good here, but there are some real good examples of things that have worked well in Des Moines, and some people that are very interested in moving this forward. Obviously, the Greater Des Moines Community Foundation is one of those, and in some discussions I've had with them, they are more than willing, as backers of this project, to help us answer those questions that I'm talking about. And I think it's good to involve a group like that to help facilitate those discussions. So at the appropriate time, I know that Christy Naus and those folks over there are willing to help us with that, whether they be the moderators of a discussion or facilitators is probably a better word, or what have you. I think all of those things are would help us head in the right direction. So keep doing what you're doing, but I just want to make sure that we're having those discussions openly.
The final topic that I had briefly under my comments is to remind the board that tonight the Serdwick group will be meeting, that is the Central Iowa Regional Drinking Water Commission will be meeting in Ankeny at 6 o'clock. That's all I had, Mr. Chair.
Any other comments from anyone on anything? Guess we'll terminate this board meeting or call it to an end. And we're going to read.
Closed session. It's part of this board meeting.
Oh, it is?
Part of this.
Oh, okay. I thought we don't close, we just go to closed session.
But you'll need a motion, is that right?
Right, it's the next back of the agenda item. I'm suggesting that the board go into closed session to discuss strategy with me as counsel in the matter where litigation is imminent and where disclosure likely to prejudice or disadvantage the position of the waterworks. And that recommendation is under
The section
21.1C.
Actually, that's a typo. That
Okay.
should be 21.4.
21.4.
Excuse me, 21.5 1C. So there's a numeral 5 after the decimal point is missing. I'm sorry, I didn't notice that before.
Okay.
So I move that we go into closed session to discuss strategy, and this is in relation to Iowa Code 2151C.
21.55C.
21.55C.
Do we have a second?
1C.
All in favor, or discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
We generally
Opposed?
take a roll call on that.
Oh, we take a roll call?
David Carlson,
All right.
Leslie Gearhart,
Aye.
Graham Gillette,
Aye.
James Grant,
Aye.
Susan Hubbard.